Hello my friends, and welcome to another watercolor tutorial. You might hear a hum in the background, and that is because I have a space heater in my bathroom. I don't know why I haven't used it before in the bathroom, because if you watch my tutorials regularly, you probably have heard me complain about how cold it is in here, sometimes when I film in the morning. So I'm glad I decided to put it in the bathroom today. Because when I film in the morning, which I typically do now on Saturdays, well, I don't know, it changes every week, but I try to do it in the morning on Saturdays. The wood stove kind of went out overnight, and it's still taking some time to kick back on, or kick the heat back on, so get to the point, Julia. So we're gonna be painting it's gonna be a blurry background, but we're gonna have a very detailed flower as the focal point. I am really notoriously bad at flowers, so we'll see what this ends up looking like. But for now, I'm just taking a very watered down blue, and I don't want it to be so baby blue. I want it to be more not sky blue, kind of like a grayish blue. And what we're gonna do is cover, I would say, almost the entirety of our piece of paper in portrait position. I've taped the edges of my piece of paper so that I have nice clean borders, but also it helps with, what does it help with? Buckling. It won't buckle your paper because it won't get on the sides and around the edges. So I would say up to about here is a good point. I would say 3/4 of the way down, and then you can fade it into a very watered down green as your like that remaining fourth. And then I'm just going to subtly blend those together like that. Now, while this is still wet, in fact, before we even get into that, I'm not happy with how dark mine is, so I'm mixing gray and blue and just going over that again to make the blue a little bit darker. Excuse me. And I'm gonna switch brushes because I want one that isn't as thick. And we're gonna paint like this mountain range. By the way, this painting is inspired by olamozej. Yeah, in her painting there's some kind of, I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna just say it's a mountain range in the background. But you wanna do it while the paper is still wet. So you're doing wet on wet here. And we're gonna start the mountain somewhere here maybe, and it's going to sort of meet at the line where, right before where the green starts. So it's gonna kind of go down like this, like a slope. If your paper is too wet, like mine is almost too wet, it might spread farther than you would like it to. So perhaps wait for your paper to dry a little bit and not be as wet. I'm just trying to blend out this blue. It's a bit challenging though. I did take a little bit of black, and I'm adding black in with my navy blue because I want this mountain range to appear a little bit darker, because when this paint dries, it's not going to be as dark. So just keep that in mind when you're painting. Now, the other thing that you want to do while your background is still wet is do something similar to the foreground where the green, where we laid that green down. So this is gonna be like a grassy patch where flowers are growing out of, and it's basically just, okay people, slight intermission. Well, there will be a slight intermission. I just have to finish this because it's wet on wet, and if I don't finish it, then... Okay, it's kind of chaos right now. My husband is watching the baby, as he does on Saturdays when I do this. And he's Skyping his parents in Europe at the same time, and I forgot I left the oven on because I'm baking sourdough. Luckily, there's nothing in the oven, so, because I've made that mistake many times. Let me tell you, once I baked my sourdough starter, and I had to throw it out because it turned into bread, which was unfortunate because that was many weeks, that was actually months of building my sourdough starter to what it was. So back to the painting. I'm adding a little bit of, I'm using different greens. So I have like a bit of lime green, forest green. These aren't the official names. These are just the names that I call them. I've mixed a little bit of black in to make like a darker hue as well. And I want it even darker actually. So I'm gonna grab a thinner brush here. I've been using the grabby brushes a lot in my tutorials recently. I'm a huge fan. I wasn't when I initially tried them out, because I wasn't used to the flimsiness of the bristles, but they are actually so much easier for detail work once you kind of get used to them and know how to use them. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it like that for now. The one other thing I want to do before we let this dry and before I go deal with my sourdough is I'm gonna take white watercolor, but you can use white acrylic paint. It'll do the same thing. And I'm just flicking that white onto my paper while it's still wet, because it's not really doing what I want it to do. Hold on. Let me just try my white acrylic paint, because that might do the job a little bit better. So I'm taking white acrylic paint, watering it down heavily so that it is flickable. There we go. And when that touches the wet surface, it kind of spreads out in this bokeh. I don't know how to say that, so I apologize. B-O-K-E-H, the bokeh effect. I love that effect, and it's so easy to do. That's not what I wanted to do. I thought it would spread out, but just tap it as much as you want. You know when you take a picture and it's way too sunny in the picture, so you have all these little like glowing yellow and white circles everywhere? That's kind of the effect that I'm going for here. But I'm gonna leave this the way that it is. I am happy with the amount of these little these dots and blurry things that I have going on. And we're gonna let this totally dry before we move on to the next step. Okay, I hope that this is dry. I can already tell that it's not, but luckily this next part is kind of we're using a pencil, so it's not a big deal. I advise you if you are not good at flowers, like I am not good at flowers, to sketch your flower out with a pencil first. I'm even tempted not to even paint a flower because I am really bad at them and it's just going to make it worse. So I wish I could trace it, but I can't. I don't have that ability since I already painted over the paper. Okay, what I would have done differently looking back is I would have drawn out my flower with a pencil before painting any of this, because then you can put your piece of paper against, like, you can trace it against something and then paint all this on, and you'll still be able to see the pencil mark through it. But I don't have that luxury at the moment. I'm gonna choose to have my stem starting from here. It seems like a natural sprouting area since this kind of goes out to the right and these kind of go to the left, and kind of the rule of thirds. It works for me to start here. So I'm gonna have my little sprout coming out here. And then it sort of goes like this. And then like this, and then like this, so this person drew cosmos flowers, and I know enough about flowers, which is very little, but I grew these in my garden last year, and that is how I know these are cosmos. But it's also a good compliment to this artist because she did a really, really good job that I am not going to do. So I'm actually considering, guys, not painting the flowers, but just painting the buds. Because buds are fairly easy. You just kind of put a little green spot and then a little colored spot on top, and it's your bud. What do I do? What do I do? I really like how this background is looking, and I don't want to ruin it with a butchered flower. Like, I am not going to pretend that I'm good at flowers, because I suck. I am very bad at flowers. Some have worked out on my channel, but for the most part, like, I always struggle and I always get so frustrated, which I suppose is a good learning lesson, because I always tell you guys to not give up and keep trying until you finish your painting. But man, it's hard when it's your own disaster, you know? And that is why I would encourage you to sketch out your flower first. Something like that. The bud will come out that way. I think I'll just have the one flower because that means there's only one opportunity to mess everything up. So once you have that sketched out, we can begin painting, obviously. I'm just trying to debate. I think I'll start with the flower first because that's kind of the most tedious part, the part I'm not looking forward to the most. And this one is this deep magenta color, which I very much like. I very much like this color. And it's the same color as the ones I grew in my garden last year. And they came out beautiful, like very, very, very nice. I would clip them and make a little bouquet every day. Not every day, I think they only lasted 3 days in a vase before the petals started to drop. Anyways, So I'm going to start, the darker part of each petal is towards the center. So I'm going to try and make sure that I capture that. Like so. And I'm going to switch, I'm going to have two paintbrushes going so I don't have to rinse in between each one. But I took a little bit of black and I'm just adding a little bit of black in the center, like towards the sides of my petal there to distinguish them from the other petals. So I'm just switching again. So today is Saturday. I almost always film on Saturdays now. And we were supposed to go to the city today to run a bunch of errands. And I decided that I didn't feel like doing that. I am really tired. And I can't even think straight, so I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just dipping. So like I said earlier, I wanted to make the inside of my petal darker than the outside. So that's why I'm kind of wetting my paintbrush, rinsing it so there's just water, and making that top part brighter. I'm going to do the same thing for the next petal. I just want to be careful because I don't want them to sort of blend into one another, which I have the tendency to do in every single painting, and it drives me bonkers. So I'm going to try to even leave a super thin gap there, which I was successful at. Very happy about that. And you're going to move around your flower, and you're just going to paint every single petal, like similarly to how we painted the first two there. And again, I'm using my two paintbrushes, and then I'm filling it in with mostly watered down pink, leaving a white gap. So yes, we were gonna go to the city to take care of a bunch of things, and last night I was just like, I don't want to go, because we would have had to have left pretty, not early, but early, because one of the places closes at 12 and it's almost an hour drive. So I want to redo our coffee table. I'm going to try to DIY it because, for one, I have a very particular style in mind that I want for a coffee table, and I can't find it online. I'm at a point in my life where I will just, pay what I need to pay in order to get what I want. Oh my gosh, did you just see what I did? Did you Don't hold two paintbrushes at the same time, people. Okay, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna leave it for now, because if I start talking about it, I'm just gonna cry. So let's pretend this didn't happen, but I will show you if I can fix it later on. I'm not dealing with it now. I'm just gonna keep talking about my failed city trip and hopefully forget about all my problems. I don't even know what I was saying anymore, guys. I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I was talking about the coffee. Yes, so I'm at a point where, like, I will just, if I find the coffee table I want, I will just buy that coffee table, because I am very tired. I don't have very much extra time to just do leisurely things like I did before I had a child. But unfortunately, I cannot find the coffee table that I want online. It just does not, the vision that I have in my head does not exist online. And I do have a limit to what I will pay for a coffee table. So I am not going to have one custom made because not that they're not worth that amount of money that woodworkers charge for having custom furniture made. For sure, they need to charge what they need to charge because, I mean, it's a skill, and it's a skill that takes a lot of time, and materials are expensive. So I'm not saying that at all, but I just don't wish, like, this is a want. This is not a need, and so I'm not going to spend $2,000 on a coffee table just because it has a couple of extra shelves, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to attempt to make it myself, as I have made furniture in the past. I feel confident in my abilities, and so we were going to go to this place in the city, pick up specialty hardwood. And they're the ones that are only open until 12, but I was like, I don't even feel like building this thing at the moment. I'm tired. I have so little free time where I can just sit and spend time in a relaxing way. And I will just put this out there, and I know that some people are going to be very triggered by this, but painting is not relaxing for me anymore. This is my job, and I kind of get stressed out about it every week that I have to sit down and come up with new tutorials. Like, I've done Mother's Day 4 times. I've done birthday cards 4 times, or way more than 4 times, but like 4 seasons worth. And after a while, you kind of run out of ideas for these seasons. So you really got to dig to find new things to paint. And when I'm already sleep deprived and I'm already really tired, it is a job at this point. It is not a hobby. I would not, if I had a free time where I didn't have to watch my baby and I could just do whatever I wanted, it would not be painting. It would probably be, I don't know, I'd actually have to think about what that would be because I haven't had that in a very long time. Just a quick side note here, I did put yellow and then a little bit of orange underneath for the, I think it's called the bud of the flower. And actually, I might add a little bit of black in there. And then we could add some black specks later on. I do want to darken this part, like complete the petal, but I'm just waiting for this to completely dry before I do so because I don't want it to bleed into the other petals. Okay, so this flower did not turn out as horrible as I thought it was going to. So far so good, guys. I'm just gonna wait to finish this part, like I said, until this is all dry. I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna test my fate like I usually do. And we're gonna just move on to like the stem of our flower. I also have, gosh, what time is it? I have about 35 minutes, no, 30 minutes before I have to do something with my sourdough. I will explain that in a moment. I just have to concentrate on this part. So I'm doing the stem, and I think I can't really see my pencil mark, but I think it starts here somewhere. And then it sort of goes up like that, and it splits off here to this flower, and then it splits off again here. It's gonna go into a little bud. I think I painted it a little too close, but what can you do? So there, and then it'll split again. So again, I've said this in previous videos, I am obviously not a botanist, but you guys are full of knowledge, so maybe you can tell me. Cosmos flowers have these, lots of these tiny little growths coming out of the stem, and it reminds me a lot of like dill or chamomile, the foliage of dill and chamomile. Are they related? That is my question. Are these flowers related? Do they have the same genetic origin? If you know, I would love to know, because I'm not going to look it up. I'm not going to bother looking it up. But you guys always seem to share the coolest stuff, the coolest know-how with me. So this stem, like I said, it has all these little hairs coming off of it. Obviously they're not hairs, but I just call them that. So remember when I messed up here, I had a different plan for what I was gonna do there, but my little plant has a mind of its own. Okay. So here is a perfect little anecdote, if that's the right word to use in this situation, to why I love these brushes. They're just wonderful. They have the right amount of bend to them to allow for very thin lines, very thin details. And this is going to be a bud here, so what you could do is paint the bud first and then do all these other little hairy details afterwards, but and I might try that on a different one. But for this one, I just wanted to do the greenery first and deal with the other details afterwards. So just adding my little bud here. I'm gonna add another bud here. And another bud here. The thing is, my buds are significantly darker than my flower, which, by the way, we can probably finish. I know I'm jumping a little bit, but I want to finish this flower, and now that these are dry, I think we can do that. So I'm just filling this in with like a darker shade. Like so. And actually, now that I look at this, I'm gonna add little thin, I don't know what they're called. I'm gonna call them veins on the flower petals. And here I'm debating, do I paint another flower or, oh my gosh, I just painted. Why do I do that, guys? Okay, barely visible. If you weren't looking at the screen, you probably have no idea what even just happened. And that's probably best because I keep messing things up. I'm so tempted to paint another flower here because it would look really good. I think it would balance things out really nicely. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So this flower looks as though it is losing its petals. Which is what we okay. So we're gonna do the same kind of process that we did for that first one. Why am I doing this to myself? I could have just painted a bud and called it a day. We fed our baby peanut butter for the first time this morning. So the fact, and my husband's watching her, so the fact that he hasn't called me in panic is a good sign. It means that she's probably gonna be okay. Because she has some skin issues which are related to allergies, so we were a little bit nervous about the peanut butter and other major allergens. So I'm kind of speeding this one up. This flower. Mostly because I'm a little bit worried about my sourdough, guys. I wonder, are there any other people in the any viewers that are also into sourdough? I'm very much, even though I've been trying sourdough for years, I'm still very much a beginner because most of my loaves don't look great, and especially after I had to throw my good sourdough starter out. Like, I bought quite expensive flour to use as the starter for that one, and then I had to throw it out because I baked it. I keep my sourdough starter in the oven with the light on because it's nice and toasty warm, so it can grow and thrive. And I turned the oven on and I forgot to take the starter out, and I'm pretty sure that's like a classic thing that happens to most people that start sourdough. And then the timer went off for the preheat, and I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, it was mostly baked. It was bread on the sides, and then like when I tried to salvage the center that had not baked yet, but by that time, like, after it started to grow mold and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'm throwing this out. This is start over. So, okay. So this is a much darker version of the flowers. It wasn't really intentional, it just kind of came out that way. But I'm just gonna do that same yellow center, so I'm using my kind of painting on the yellow, and then I'm going to grab like a darker orange and just add that on the bottom. And I'm going to dab a little bit of black in there. Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear my baby laughing in the background. She's a happy little chap. Okay. So I wasn't done the stem when I got ahead of myself here. So we're gonna jump back to the stem and finish all the little whatever these things are. And later we're gonna probably line them with either a lime green or white. So I'm adding the little green parts. These kind of look like little strawberries. I'm overlapping some of it onto the bud. I am hearing my child make sounds that I have never heard before. But she absolutely adores my husband. Like when he walks through the door after a day of work, she recognizes him immediately and the biggest smile spreads across her face. It is really beautiful to see. Okay, so I've added all these little, whatever you want to call these, extra growths from the stem. And before I kind of highlight them, like I said I was going to, I first want to add some details on the grass. Although these are a bit dark for what I wanted to. And then I'll have little whatever these are. I'm just painting these little leaf-like things coming off of those darker strands that we painted. And this is how I was going to originally cover up that mistake. If you remember that, this cluster over here, but I think that it kind of took care of itself. So you can paint as many of these strands on as you would like. I think I don't want to overdo it, so I might just leave it like that for now. But what I do want to do, like I said, I'm going to take a metallic color actually, because I have a metallic color and I think that that would be really neat. It's like a silver. This is part of my grabby set. I don't use the metallic colors very often, but I did something similar on a previous painting where I used a metallic color to provide the highlights on the stem of something, and it looked really neat. So I'm gonna do it again. And you don't have to paint it along the entire stem if you don't want to. I'm going to do it across some of my strands of grass, even add some strands of grass and silver. I think that would be neat as well. And it makes, if some of your strands are thicker than you wanted them to be, it really helps mask some of that intensity without getting rid of the stem itself. And it's very low effort too. And I think I might add it to some of the leaves or whatever these things are. Although that was a bit too much, I think. I'm going to try and paint the green back on. Oh shoot, I forgot to go in. I was gonna go in a lot closer so you guys could see the detail, and then I forgot to do a close-up. I might add some silvery details to the buds as well. Oh my gosh, where did that go? Where did that go? I think here, yes, okay. I dropped a big glob of water somewhere and I couldn't find it. And I didn't want to leave it there because we all know what happens when that happens. I don't really like that too much. I'm going to paint a little bit of the red back on. Okay, now I think I might end there. There is something missing with this painting. Like there's some sort of intensity missing. I'm just slapping on some of the silver. I think I'm tapping it on here. To make it more mystical. Okay, that's probably good. So I think I might leave it at that, guys. I'm gonna peel the tape off so that my borders are nice and clean, and I can never get the tape off in one go. It's always a challenge. It's always 4 parts, but anyways, there we go. That didn't turn out too bad, given that flowers are not my forte. Let me know what you think in the comments, what maybe you would have done differently. Please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next tutorial.